Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and a tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another D&D Beyond review, my written and a video review series where we take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at dndbeyond.com. With this video, I'll be reviewing Descent into the Caverns of Tsojcanth, a remastered 5e tournament edition of the classic 1982 D&D module created by Gary Gygax. In fact, I believe it was originally created in the 70s, but it was officially published as a D&D module in 1982. This adventure is free on D&D Beyond, and it's designed as a one-shot tournament version, which I'll explain what that means, of the larger 5e remaster adventure, The Lost Caverns of Tsojcanth, which appears in the upcoming anthology Quest from the Infinite Staircase, releasing later this summer. So this is a review of this very specific version of this adventure, and I guess kind of a preview of that entire upcoming book. If you enjoy this content, consider using my affiliate links for online shopping and supporting me via patreon.com/RogueWatson. So I don't know much about older D&D modules. I admit I am basically a newcomer when it comes to 5th edition, but I do have a amazing one of those walkthrough poster art pieces by the incredible Jason Thompson of the original Lost Caverns of Tsojcanth module, and it looks really cool. It features a whole bunch of monsters in it, just like a lot of these older D&D modules where it was the whole adventure was essentially a dungeon crawl, and it was kind of light on role playing and very heavy on the hack and slash, which is certainly not necessarily a complaint, but the game has evolved, I think, over the decades, and modern players expect to have probably more role playing involved. So I went into this thinking, similar to, I guess, Tales from the Yawning Portal, is how do you kind of modernize these old adventures while still making sure they have that original footprint there. They feel like a old school dungeon crawl, but hopefully we can eliminate any kind of tediousness. And one complaint I always had is the maps were kind of awkward and very large, and just how do we make that a good version of that for 5th edition. So this is what looks like kind of half of the adventure. Presumably, I have not seen the full adventure. Like I said, the book, The Quest for the Infinite Staircase, is not out until later this summer. And it does say that this is a version, an abridged quick play version of the Lost Caverns of Tsojcanth, which appears in Quest from the Infinite Staircase. So presumably there's a fuller remastered version that's going to appear in that book, and this is a tournament version that is presumably meant to be played even in a one-shot, although I would be... One-shot is as in maybe 6 hours, because there's a lot of combat in this module. It is designed for 9th level characters, so pretty high level. In fact, I think we're getting up to like Tomb of Horrors level at that point, so we can throw a lot of things at the party. It also comes with several pre-made characters included here in D&D Beyond, 6 of them, I believe, which we'll look at that in a second, and an absolutely gorgeous map by none other than fine map artist Mike Schley, one of the best in the business. This is amazing, and yes, it includes a player version, which is completely VTT ready, looks exactly like this, but without all the annotations and notes in it. So for those of you that are familiar with the old module, I think this is about like the top half of that dungeon, because the greater caverns are even listed on the map as stairs, although in my walkthrough poster it's the river that actually takes you down to the lower level, but here it's the river. They just say it's a waterfall that empties down into some underdark lake. And the only weird thing is the story here. I'm okay with the beginning of the story, right? It's basically like, hey, we just need you to go explore this dungeon, figure out if Igwiliv is still there, who is aka Tasha from Tasha's Cauldron and Everything and D&D lore, and just see if whatever's loot there. It's just go in there and explore and grab shit and kill shit, so which is fine, but there's no real ending involved in this adventure. And in fact, it feels even weirder because it's like the first half of a dungeon. It's like, oh, now that you found the second half, it's just kind of almost like you're getting like a demo or a preview version, in a video game, where it'd be like, all right, thanks for playing, now buy the whole product. It doesn't necessarily feel like that. This is a lot of dungeon. You're going to get, your money's worth, which is free, so you can't complain too much. But story-wise, it feels odd because it doesn't really have an ending point that I could necessarily see. But there's still plenty here to do. And one thing I do really love which we might have to jump to the appendix for, is the score sheet. So the score sheet, which is a PDF you can grab, is literally, you want to play this like a like a tournament adventure. So you're scoring all of your players depending on all the things they do. So are they grabbing magic items? Are they killing monsters? Are they triggering traps? Are they helping a monster do a thing that monster wants them to do? All of these things involve various pluses and minuses. By the way, which I'll put this in the description, but huge spoilers for this adventure. It's an older, edition module, so it's technically already exists out there. But if you're planning on playing this as a player, obviously you don't want to watch this video. I will also warn my own players and patron players. I would be very interested in running this myself. Also, even as like a tournament, kind of a quick module thing with very light story and just kind of hack and slash. I could definitely see getting some enjoyment from that. So watch yourself on this video, because I will be showing a lot of the events you can do, and obviously the maps and monsters and all that good stuff. I like the score sheet a lot. I think it's fun, and it kind of motivates me to actually play this as a proper tournament context, where you're literally scoring parties depending on the correct things they do, and thus you just end up with a score at the end. So that right there will tell you if you're going to enjoy how this module operates. If you want to play D&D for the story, which a lot of us do, and that's totally fine, this is not going to be that kind of adventure. It's literally just about the hacking and slashing, and you can obviously have a great time doing it, but you're just getting a score, a high score at the end. So just know that that's kind of the theme of how this whole thing works. But I think it's an absolutely awesome design. Probably my favorite aspect of it is that it's so non-linear, which is hugely impressive and always a difficult thing to do in a D&D dungeon, because you want to create that nice pacing of, you start investigating, you find different things, and at the end you get to a boss fight. And then how do you do that proper pacing if you're opening up your dungeon, allowing them to explore around? You don't want them to get to the boss too early, for example. It's a very tricky line that, all DMs have to try to work through. This dungeon, the way it gets by with doing that is saying, well, there's not really any one big boss fight here. As I mentioned, it's kind of part of the problem. There's no big climactic story or ending or something. Instead, it's just going around doing all the things. But the advantage to that is it's super non-linear from the very beginning, which I believe is lifted from the original. There's these stone faces that talk to you, and they tell you that, oh, you should definitely go my way. I have the best path you can take. And there's multiple paths. One of them is just literally a dead end, but others go in all these different directions. So at the very beginning, there's like 5 different directions you can go in. 2 of which will get you deeper into the dungeon. Another one has a huge area that leads to other, like these giant cricket things, and there's trolls sitting there in their green slime cave. Another one has these perch creatures. This is level 5, which I don't know how you're supposed to fit 8 of these guys in there. They're not hostile though, which is kind of nice. And something I appreciate is, even though there's a ton of monsters in almost every room, not all the monsters are hostile. There's a lot of monsters you can actually work with, either through like tension, like the Bahir that's a little further in, or the pitch, which are just perfectly friendly to speak with. There's a golem with a sword through its chest you can grab after you defeat it. You can see here that both the westernmost path and then the southeastern path eventually lead deeper into the dungeon, but the party's not going to know that, so they're just going to start taking all these paths, trying to figure out which way to go. They can get to the river, essentially, and the river will lead them to further areas, which I love the way the river also has all its branching paths, and you can see the river currents and everything. This area 9 here has like constantly respawning bats, if you have a light source at all, and then these morays, which are like these giant cave eels, just start popping out of the walls to attack the party if they make it up here to the Fomorians in area 11. The lake here has some jewels at the bottom, which don't jack with you unless you've got light, which of course the players would have light because it's pitch dark in here. There's a folding boat they can grab. There's all these different branching paths with the river as well as the land. There's a basilisk den in here. There's the Bahir, which is definitely a giant one. This is in room 15 here. And I believe it is here in the original module as well. And it's actually talkative. It's not stupid. It doesn't try to fight a whole party of adventurers. Instead, it will kind of talk to them, but it might try to pick somebody off, or if the party pisses it off. It's not the most easygoing, amiable creature for sure, but it's not meant to be an instant hostile battle either. And in fact, he can lead the party to a different area full of treasure, which is room 18 here. I believe it's full of a bunch of ghouls, but an island full of gems. But one thing I wanted to point out, this is the least like believable part of this entire adventure, even though the ecology is insane and there's monsters of like all these different types right next to each other, which is kind of part of the charm of these older D&D adventures. I feel like is the treasure in this room, this Blackwater Lake, is an island of gems. 600 garnets are strewn across the island, each about the size of a pea, so about a marble, right? 600 marbles. It takes 10 minutes for a single creature to collect the gems by hand. Has anybody tried to pick up marbles like that your kids like dropped or something? Like 600 in 10 minutes by hand. That's completely unbelievable to me. I just wanted to point that out because I found that really weird and funny. 8 aquatic ghasts in that room guarding it, which the Behir will gladly lead the party into. There is a trapped Merid, which is like a water genie beneath the water in L20. They can try to free that genie using any one of the earth creatures or dispel magic. And it will then demand you destroy the Tao, which is a Earth genie. A lot of Earth-based creatures in here, by the way. There's some Zorn you can talk to as well. And the Earth genie has like this really creepy like illusion set up with these nobles you just see in a cave. And then the Tao will want to attack them. I believe he's very hostile. So there's at least like 4 of the monsters, like the Behir, the Merid, the Zorn, and the Petch, that the party can just speak to and try to work with. And then others like the Golem, there's a Cloaker, the Trolls, the Fomorians, the Ghasts, the Tao will, and there's Basilisk and Chul. Like those will all try to fight the party. And then of course there's treasure and all these exploration opportunities throughout. There's a crushing trap in one of these rooms that has a nice tantalizing like illusory bag of gold. It feels very like hilariously Gygaxian, where just it's a cruel trap meant to, you know, tempt the party into trying to steal it, and then they just get absolutely demolished by this crushing trap. I think it's an awesome dungeon design, and I think it is super cool from a non-linear standpoint that I would be very interested. This is, you know, a lot of dungeons I look at and in adventures, and there was no way I would ever run them multiple times because I just have no interest in revisiting that same kind of content. But this one that's relatively light on story, almost completely non-existent, and yet has so much interesting non-linearity, this is actually going to motivate me. Possibly I could run it for multiple groups just because I would love to see how different groups end up tackling these different challenges and which ones they do or maybe don't even see, what order in which they do all these events. All of these things could matter, and that's where the, you know, score sheet comes in, where you are, as the DM, is secretly keeping track of all these things, and at the end you can actually provide a very nifty score sheet, which I think is really fun and a neat part of it. You can see that the actual end of it is basically you discover the entrance to the greater caverns, or you die, or you simply run out of time because you're not meant to play it for more than that. So the only bummer is there's not really an endpoint in this entire adventure. It sucks, and I think you just get to the end of it, and those caverns are with the... Why can't I see the map anymore? Starting the adventure. Oh, there we go. The greater caverns is actually right here in the Behir room too. So I guess when you meet the Behir, you can either fight him or he'll lead you somewhere else. And then it gets really weird. We're like, okay, what do we... I guess you kind of... It feels weird to just play until you run out of time. You're like, all right, well, you guys are done. You've explored all you want, and then here's your check mark. I wish there was at least some kind of like scripted event that would have happened when you reach like an end time. I think that would have been the most elegant way of dealing with this solution, where it doesn't really have an ending. Instead, like just look and see like, okay, are the players, are they running out of time? Do they only have like 30 minutes left or whatever? Go ahead and trigger like some evil wizard showing up or something, or a sinkhole opening behind them or something that then allows them to do like a final fight or just a final scene where it's like, okay, you've made it this far, and then you can tease like a future thing happening that's probably not going to happen because it's a one shot. But I was disappointed the fact that the best ending they could come up with is like this slightly blocked, slightly hidden entrance to the greater caverns, and then you just go down there, and then it's like, all right, well, you're done. And then what happens if you just saw that and you're like, oh, let's just go down there and explore, but this was like one of the first things you did, and then you're just done because you were unlucky enough to not explore the rest of the caverns, which is kind of a big part of the adventure. The other stuff you get is some new magic items, which are all included here in the D&D Beyond. I wanted to show the... Let's see, we already see the score sheet. That's right there. The pre-made characters. Absolutely fabulous. We get full artwork and, of course, all the character sheets in D&D Beyond. The total characters, human cleric, halfling rogue, human fighter, dwarf monk, gnome wizard, and tiefling warlock. I don't know why we're only using the most traditional of the species, I guess we're calling them now. when in fact, I don't know who even plays like humans and halflings anymore when we've got, you know, rabbit people and turtles and all that stuff. But that's fine. That's fine. The character sheets are, of course, all built into D&D Beyond and look very spiffy, and everything's all worked up in there for 9th level. And that would also help motivate players, because I think a big problem with trying to run these one-shot adventures is the character is you build these characters like, okay, well, I care about these characters a lot, right? Shout out to Justice, by the way. I watched his video talking about the Quest for the Infinite Staircase, actual lead designer for this tournament edition of Tsojcanth, which is very cool. I reviewed his work in the past. And by providing these pre-made characters, I think that takes a lot of the pressure and weight off of parties and the DM for maybe trying to run this as a tournament adventure where it's like, we don't really necessarily care about these, you know, characters in terms of their story or their, you know, XP or anything that's going on there. So we can just run these as pre-made characters. So I'm generally pretty positive about this adventure, because I think what it's trying to do as, again, that abridged, you know, quick version of a full module is pretty spiffy, and I think they succeed at that. Quickly, my pros and cons for Descent into the Lost Caverns of Tsojcanth, which, yes, I looked up how to pronounce that because I had no idea. Pro, it's a large 20-room dungeon where every area holds something interesting or deadly. Literally, I don't think there's a single empty room that's actually marked here. Now, obviously, there are empty tunnel dead ends frequently, but you've already got 20 rooms full of things, and I think over half of them easily have a monster in it. But as I mentioned, not every monster is hostile, which brings me to my other pro. Excellent mix of combat, traps, treasure, and social encounters. That last one being the thing I was really looking for, because I think that's what is lacking in a lot of the older, you know, D&D modules. That social component probably wasn't quite as big, or at least baked into the game directly. Whereas now I think a lot of us expect there to be like, oh, is there a prisoner somewhere we can talk to, or something going on, or and maybe somebody's got these sub quests that are, you know, you're in the dungeon and then you get somebody who's like, oh, let me do this thing, which in this case, I think the Captured Merid is an excellent version of a sub quest where you have to free this character, and then they can help you. They can cast spells, and they can motivate you to also destroy this other enemy that they hate in the dungeon. So I think that checks my box just enough that they included some of those social encounters through all the monsters, and not just manufacturing some kind of, you know, lost prisoner or something. Pro, multiple branching paths that grant parties a ton of options. My goodness, was that probably the most impressive part of this dungeon adventure. I don't know if that was necessarily the case in the original. I know the Stone Faces branching thing was a thing, and I know that the underground river was a thing, but I didn't, I guess, maybe realize or pay attention that it was so nonlinear, or maybe that's something they changed with this new version, but just gives the party so many, it's almost overwhelming. Like, I have no idea how you would choose where to go. You have no clue. It's just, you're in it for the fun of the exploration, trying to find good things and not die. Pro, beautiful, gorgeous Mike Schley map art with VTT ready play version. If you haven't noticed, I've been sticking to this map for almost the entirety of the review because it's the best thing to look at. Obviously, there are some great, you know, artwork throughout that showcases some of the scenes, but I can describe everything just as easy by looking at the map art, and it is absolutely fabulous, and I love it to death. Cons, you already know there's no ending. Unfortunately, like, even the conclusion is like, well, when you find the Greater Caverns or you die, then it's just kind of end, and it's meant to end on a cliffhanger, and you'll have to, I mean, it is kind of a preview, right? It's like it's the tournament version. It's if you want to play this adventure. I still wish they had, I think just because you're creating the first half of a dungeon and quote unquote the tournament version doesn't mean you literally can't have an ending. I find that unsatisfying if I were playing this. I think there should have been at least some kind of scene or something that happens that would have properly given context and a little bit of closure somehow to the ending thing, other than just saying like, all right, well, we're done here and here's your final score for the end. But that's the one thing I would probably change if I were running it, is just to come up with, I don't know, at least a cutscene or something. Final verdict. The old school module Lost Caverns of Tsojcanth still holds up today, and tournament score sheets and pre-made PCs help facilitate a fast-paced yet fulfilling remastered dungeon crawl. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can watch more reviews and follow our own D&D adventures here on the channel, and support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson. Rogue Watson. Shouts to Platinum Patrons, Joe, Will, Thomas, Stan, Brennan, Zen Cider, Eclectic, Roleplayer, Earl, Christopher, Corey, Big Nut, John F., John L., Eric, Tyler, Nathan, Cap, Crystal, Counselor, Andrew, Dell, The Reldrun, Captain Woody 79, Stephanie, Andy, Patrick, Jason, Ismail, Amit, Lumpy, Spud, Sharny, David, William, Amnesiac, and Gold Patrons, RPG, Papercramps, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Dizzle Down, Sam, Jerome, Nathan, Fast Like a Tortoise, Scott, Rufus, Karen, Jerry, Glenn, Marcus, and Mark. Thank you all very much for your support.